Yay. Let's turn some lights off up front here. Can we do that, Sierra? Lights up here so we can see. Thanks. I don't know where they are. Oh, great. So, hi, everybody. So, how many of you are brand new beekeepers, or maybe not even?
3 months.
3 months, 2 months? Who doesn't have a hive yet? Awesome. What a great spot you're in. This is great. Okay, I want to get a sense of who I'm talking to tonight. So that's one of my girls, I presume. And she's visiting a gray leaf, a Melochia tomentosa in my yard. And, you know, for the beginners, for the new bees, each bee performs a series of work tasks according to her age, her age. The young bees clean the hive and they feed the developing bees. And as they age, they take on different roles. And that includes cooling the hive, curing the honey, removing dead bees, and guarding the hive entrance. None of those jobs are, easy jobs. But the last job that a honeybee does is that of foraging. And hey guys. Hey. And they forage for 4 things, and I'll get to that in a second. For most of the year, the worker bees, have a life expectancy of about 6 weeks. They become foragers in the last 10 to 15 days of their life. It is the most dangerous task that the bees undergo. Dangerous? Why is it dangerous? They're just going to flowers. No. It's dangerous because, sometimes they're flying really far away. There's birds, there's cars, there's trucks, there's hurricanes, there's lizards, right? There's all kinds of stuff. And what you'll notice is, in some of these pictures, you'll notice that some of the bee wings are kind of tattered, right? And so they give up their entire life, they give their life for the colony, for the community. And it's really profound until their wings can't function anymore, and then they just kind of, walk off the front of the edge and they just walk off. But here's the thing. Honeybees will abscond if there's not enough forage for them. So that's what this is about. This is about having enough forage for your bees in your yard or across the street or wherever you want to do it. Okay, so what do they bring? First thing, that didn't correct. Uh-oh. Do I need this?
Yes.
You can't hear me? Yes. 2 things? Oh, that's really loud.
Yeah, we can hear you.
That's the wrong version. Can you give me a second?
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want the first second. Give me the second. Okay, let's try it again. Nope, still didn't correct. Okay, so when I first started my beehives a couple years ago, I didn't think about water. Does everybody who has a beehive think about water? Yeah. You do, right? Because you listen and pay attention. I don't listen and pay attention. So, I really didn't pay attention to that. And I would find them in my swimming pool. And I imagine my neighbor finds them in their swimming pools too. And when they're in the pool, unfortunately, usually they're dead. Except sometimes I fish them out. So the honeybees will bring water back to the hive from any available source. They prefer a source located in the sun. Did you know that? No. I didn't know that. Water with a flavor is preferred by the bees over clean, flavorless water. That's kind of like why they like chlorine and mucky waters. They're attracted to swimming pools treated with chemicals, bird baths, and pet watering bowls. This is I have a pointer. This is a plant inside of my bog. Once I put that in, my worries about bee water were over because they get so much water. This, as you recognize, is a 3-gallon bucket with a top and the lids and Bees are so happy. I just couldn't believe it. I hadn't been doing that all this time. What's your favorite way? How do you water them?
Bird bath.
Canal, bird bath. Who else? Pond. And
They like the green slime.
what?
There's a glass bowl in the yard.
Glass bowl in the yard. This coming up now is my favorite. Oh no. Water for cooling the hive, cleaning the honey for larvae. Maintain the temperature of the nest throughout the year at 95. Did you know that? You all knew that. I learned so much doing this presentation. It's so cool. Hot. Anyway, in the heat of the summer, they have to cool it down to an internal temperature of 95 degrees. And so to cool it, the foraging bees look for sources of water, and they carry the water back to their hives in their honey gut. And inside the hive, the water is used to cool the hive by worker bees fanning their wings, to evaporate the water and circulate the cool air. Returning foragers pass their what happened? Pass their water. Whoops. Sorry. Yep. The returning bees, foragers pass the water off to the bees waiting to fan the hive, and they'll continue to forage for waters as long as the fanning bees accept the water that they're bringing. I didn't know that either. So that's pretty cool. But this is my favorite bee watering device we're about to see. Let's build one. This is a sculpture at the Oak Creek Center for Urban Horticulture in Corvallis. And the water is piped in here. It comes up, goes into this bamboo pipe, and this has got a few misters on it, which drips into the moss that's at the top. The moss gets soaking wet and drips down into all these cracks and crevices. Can't you imagine bees being so happy on something like that? I really love it. Okay. I don't know which one to press. Okay. So another thing they bring is propolis. You can't tell because anyway, is it incorrect? Anyway, okay, propolis, sticky resin, bee glue, made from saps and gums of trees. The resins seep from the buds of some trees and oozes from the bark and leaves of other trees. That's where they get it. Honeybees gather the propolis and combine it with resin and nectar, creating a mix with wax, pollen, and bee bread. And the bees use it to varnish their hive. Yeah, I'm sorry, having some technical difficulties. So according to Wikipedia, Clusia, right here, which is here pitch apple, we've got Clusia species, and Dale Champia, which is here, are the only known plant genera that produce floral resins specifically to attract pollinators. So they've keyed into the bees' need for resin, but the Frangipani, the plumeria, which is one of the few non-natives that I haven't removed from my yard yet, I discovered is a source for resin for the bees. So I'm leaving it where it is. Isn't that cool? That is totally cool. If you don't have one, I have one that should be pink here for sale.
No, the necklace. The source comes from the sap.
I couldn't find a lot of information, specific information on it. It might come from the sap. It might come from the nectar. I don't know. I thought that was really cool. Okay, pollen. This is one of the photographs I did not take that I wish I had. Isn't it beautiful? That's a Christmas palm pollen. The bees go crazy for palm pollen. Did you know that? Palms, palms, palms. They have a great time. And the sudden surge of pollen being brought into the hives stimulates the queens to start laying eggs. And from the nectar, the bees get carbohydrates, but from the pollen, they get their protein. Pollen is really their main source of food. Protein, fats, vitamins, and minerals. And there's a bee bread recipe that doesn't look like it's supposed to look, but there it is, bee bread recipe. Pollen plus saliva plus nectar. Ram it into a little bee hole there, and you cram it with your head and mix it up. What?
And yeast.
Well, that's in their gut. And then coat it with a light film of honey to preserve, and sometimes a light layer of wax. And call me in the morning. Okay, so these are just two of the pollen plants in my yard. Okay, there's supposed to be something happening. There it is. There's the pollen basket on the bee on the wild sage, Lantana involucrata, and there's a pollen basket there on the bastard indigo. I have a lot of plants in my yard for pollen. Most of them I have are native to Florida. When I first moved to Florida, and first moved into this house rather, the first thing I did was find out what was in my yard, and then I took out all the invasives, including the, oh no, Brazilian pepper. Brazilian pepper, while it's a great bee plant, is a very, very, very dangerous plant here in Florida. So if it's in your yard, please take it out. There's other things that can do the job. So now I plant natives, fruit trees, and other edibles, and a few non-invasive exotics, and I'll show you. Okay, so the other thing they get, the fourth thing they get, is nectar. You see the nectar? All that good stuff in there? Is that nectar? Okay. Lee, you're looking like, uh-oh, did I do something wrong? Okay, good. Oops, let's go back. So they're very efficient pollinators because they tend to return to the same flowers each day as long as there's a good nectar flow. They'll visit their crop of choice at the same time each day as flowers tend to release nectar at a particular time. Both nectar and pollen collectors need to visit anywhere from 1 to 500 flowers to collect a full load, and then we'll go back on an average of 10 or 15 trips a day. They are hard-working ladies, I have to tell you. What's that?
No wonder they die after 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, they're working hard. This is my favorite bee plant. This is a gray leaf or tea bush, Melochia tomentosa. It's a Florida native. It has year-round blooms, and every morning there are bees on it. Every morning, without fail, all over it. What? You know, you can't eat anything. We can't eat anything from this tree, but that's okay. They can, and not only them.
Not tea either?
The butterflies also. So I don't have any with me. It's a very difficult plant to propagate, and right now in Florida, a very difficult plant to find. But trust me, I'm on it. I wanted to bring them for you, but it just didn't happen. Okay. Cocoa plum. Who doesn't have a cocoa plum in their yard? Doesn't have. Okay, you should end that today. You should get a cocoa plum.
These are delicious.
The fruit are out of this world. This is my breakfast. It's been my breakfast fruit for the last couple of weeks, and there's always bees on it. Not like the gray leaf, but there's always bees on it. They're always paying attention. I have so many fruit this year. I can't even believe it. This is my non-native that I absolutely adore. This is a dwarf powder puff. You see the bees?
You have them?
I'm sorry?
You have them?
I don't have any here. I'm working on some seedlings at home. I couldn't find any out in the marketplace. What's wonderful about these is that it's not just the first time I noticed them was when I saw hummingbirds on it, and so the bees also were crazy for it. Wild coffee. Who doesn't have wild coffee? Gotta have wild coffee. This is another blooming nut. Last summer, I have a wild coffee in front of my rain barrel. Last summer, I couldn't get to the rain barrel because it was so heavy with flowers, and the bees were almost like a swarm on them, making so much noise. I'm astounded. I keep planting them in my yard, year-round flowering, in the shade. It's not usual to find wonderful plants in the shade, and the bees go there, so that's great. Whoops. And yes, I have wild coffee here, and you should take one or two or three home. Wild sage. This is the plant you saw before. What's interesting about this is these are photographs from January. no pollen basket. And here's the photograph from April, pollen basket. So, is it good for nectar? Uh-huh. Is it good for pollen? Uh-huh. Whoa. Firebush. Everybody has a firebush, right? Can't have too many. What's interesting about the firebush that I didn't know until I started looking at the pictures, if you can see this, sometimes they're in the flower, right? Sometimes they're going into the flower. Can you see my pointer? Sometimes they're going into the side of where the flower used to be. You see that? And here again you can't see it on this slide so well. This is a bruise in the bottom of, and so that's where I would imagine the nectar is, because the pollen is all the way out here on the stamens and pistils. And what are they on? Stamens or pistils? Pistils, right? Yeah. Stamens. Who gets it straight? I don't get it straight. Somewhere in there. Anyway, so I learned something new about the firebush. That was very, very interesting. What, West Indian cherry. Does anybody else besides me have one of these? You do. You do. This is a stunning tree. This is native. Yeah, this is a stunning, stunning tree. This December there were 2 major blooms, and I couldn't believe it. It's the first time it's bloomed like this. It's only been in my yard for 3 years. It's the first time